Even when inflation begins to slow on paper, many households continue to feel as though life is becoming more expensive. In 2026, this disconnect between official statistics and everyday experience has become one of the defining financial frustrations for millions of Americans. The issue is not simply that prices rose. It is that once prices move higher, they rarely return to their previous levels, forcing families to adapt to a permanently different financial reality. Imagine walking through the grocery store and realizing that the same cart of items you bought a few years ago now costs noticeably more, even though your habits have not changed. Rent consumes a larger share of your paycheck, insurance premiums continue climbing, and services that once felt affordable now require careful consideration. At the same time, headlines may announce that inflation is cooling, leaving many people wondering why their own finances still feel under pressure. The answer lies in understanding the difference between the rate of inflation and the level of prices. Inflation measures how quickly prices are increasing, not whether prices are falling. If inflation slows from 4% to 2%, prices are still rising. They are simply rising more slowly. For households already struggling to adjust to years of elevated costs, this distinction can feel almost meaningless. The burden of inflation is also unevenly distributed. Higher-income households often have greater flexibility in their budgets and are more likely to own assets that can appreciate over time. Lower and middle-income families, by contrast, spend a larger percentage of their income on necessities such as housing, food, transportation, and healthcare. When these categories become more expensive, there is little room to cut back without affecting quality of life. There is also a compounding effect that receives less attention. As prices rise, households may rely more heavily on credit cards or other forms of short-term borrowing to bridge the gap between income and expenses. Higher interest rates, often used to combat inflation, can make this borrowing more costly. The result is a cycle in which rising prices and rising debt obligations reinforce one another. Perhaps the most important shift is psychological. Inflation alters the way people think about security. A salary that once felt comfortable may no longer provide the same confidence. Savings goals move further away. Long-term planning becomes more difficult when short-term expenses demand greater attention. Over time, this uncertainty can influence everything from career decisions to family planning. Understanding inflation through this broader lens reveals that its impact extends far beyond economic charts and government reports. Inflation is not only about percentages. It is about purchasing power, behavioral responses, and the gradual adjustment to a new financial environment. For many Americans in 2026, the challenge is not simply managing higher prices. It is learning how to navigate a system in which the rules of affordability have quietly changed. The story of inflation, then, is not merely a story about money. It is a story about adaptation. The households that weather these periods most effectively are often those that understand the forces shaping their decisions, recognize the psychological pressures at play, and respond deliberately rather than reactively. While no individual can control the broader economy, understanding how these systems operate can provide clarity during times of financial uncertainty. Global events can also amplify inflationary pressures in ways that are not always immediately visible to consumers. Geopolitical conflicts in major energy-producing regions have, at various points, disrupted oil markets or created uncertainty about future supply. Because oil plays a central role in transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, and logistics, higher energy costs can ripple throughout the economy. Fuel becomes more expensive to transport goods, businesses face higher operating costs, and these increases can eventually influence the prices households encounter in everyday life. While oil prices are only one factor among many that shape inflation, periods of geopolitical instability can add another layer of pressure to an already strained economic environment.